Well, for more, we can speak now to Dr. Jamal Nazzal, who is a spokesperson for Fatah and a member of the Palestinian National Council. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Dr. Nazzal. Just before we talk about peace and the discussions between the Israelis and the Palestinians, we were just talking about the situation in Syria and the visit by Prime Minister Ahmed al-Shara to Washington today. And I just wondered whether, sort of broadly looking at the region, when you see the pace of change and the developments that we've seen during these last 12 months, are you feeling optimistic at all?
Well, I should, but I'm not sure I am. I see how far things have come between Syria and the United States, when we are so pleased to see this. And it proves and underlines the fact that nothing is impossible. Look where we come from and where we ended up, how long Syria was under US sanctions. And now everything is removed and Syria is at the beginning of a new dawn. We're happy for Syria. We had enough of the killing and the destruction in Syria, and we hope we can turn the page on and have a new start, both in Syria and in Palestine. Look how thirsty we are for peace and stability. That requires construction. We wish for the United States to lift all the sanctions against the PLO, against the Palestinian people. It's time to do this. How can we have peace between Israel and Palestine when the Palestinian government is so weakened by the US sanctions that it can hardly function? Look at how severe the Israeli sanctions on the Palestinian government are, with Israel withholding the tax revenues of the Palestinian government, constituting more than 65% of the entire income, the monthly income of the Palestinian government. So we wish for the United States to open a new page with the PLO, with the Palestinian government, so that we can really start the process of rebuilding and reform. It takes money for reform. We don't want money from nobody. We want our money. We want pressure from the United States on Israel to release our tax revenues so we can help our people in Gaza without always relying on the international community. You know, we could do it on our own with the aid, but not with the reconstruction. For the reconstruction to start, we need international help.
Yeah, okay, so we've got a situation where the Syrian president, Ahmed al-Shara, of 11 months only, is there in Washington today. In parallel, we've got Jared Kushner meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other US officials. I mean, doesn't all of this show the extent to which the Middle East dossier is absolutely front and center on President Trump's radar right now?
It does, and we all appreciate this. We all appreciate this, and I think were it not for Mr. Trump, the war in Gaza may have been going on until now. But he placed it at the top, as he deals with it as a top priority. And as a result of this, we have seen a ceasefire come about. And this is very important. And we wish for the contacts between the United States and the Palestinian leadership to continue and be also upgraded. We want this Trump plan to go on. We want this to be implemented fully, in order to also, in the end, open the political horizon. Let's not forget that the Trump plan talks about explicitly about the right of the Palestinian people for self-determination. And let this be the guiding principle of the process that we will start in Gaza. It takes more than a ceasefire to have peace. It takes more than a ceasefire to end the war. And this is a 100 years conflict. You don't end it only by a ceasefire. And we appreciate the efforts by the United States to enforce the ceasefire, and let's go on to step 2 of this wonderful plan to open the political horizon at the end. And without the Palestinian state, we can never talk about peace in the Middle East.
Sure. So just before we get on to where we are in the whole negotiating process, you are saying essentially that President Trump deserves tremendous credit for getting us to the point we're at now. Is that what you're saying?
This is what I'm saying. We all appreciate President Trump's efforts. He's open to listening to the Arab and Muslim states and I wish we open a new reliable channel with the United States. Let's not forget that the United States ambassador to the UN has a couple of days ago opened dialogue with our representatives, the representative of the state of Palestine in New York, and we had a series of meetings and an exchange of views over that. There are contacts also on other levels between Ramallah and Washington to that end, and we hope for this to continue. And we need to stress the importance of an active role of the Palestinian government in Gaza. Contrary to what Israel is advocating for, Israel wishes to rule out any engagement by the Palestinian government in Gaza, and this can only be counterproductive because for many reasons. As I explained earlier, it takes a political horizon to end the war, to end the conflict. And without a political horizon, we will move from one ceasefire to another. We've had this in the Second Intifada, I remember that. We've had several ceasefires, they all failed. And in the end, we need a political solution for a political problem. And for this to happen, we need the linkage between Gaza and the West Bank, because we're talking about one Palestinian entity, one Palestinian government, a viable Palestinian administration that can only be viable only if there is a political, legal, and administrative linkage between Gaza and the rest of Palestine.
So do you think that Jared Kushner, who's on this dossier, who's holding these talks with Prime Minister Netanyahu today, who is, after all, President Trump's son-in-law, do you think he gets all of that? Do you think he's on side with the whole project of a Palestinian state?
Well, we appreciate his engagement, but there is a lack of a political horizon. I gather that Mr. Kushner is familiar with the situation, with the background, probably also the historic background. But what we need is a political process. Are we going to do this with this United States administration? I hope we are, because we've tried all of this. The only thing that we haven't tried is creating a viable, independent Palestinian state. This is the component that nobody has tried before, and we should try it, and we should enforce this. Let's not forget that the New York conference that took place under the supervision of Saudi Arabia and France has taken place recently, and now we are talking about the ceasefire in Gaza. We want a complementary, not a contradictory relationship between these two processes. The plan, the Trump plan and the New York conference, they have to be complementary. I wish for the Trump administration to be aware of this and to lead the process of peacemaking in Palestine. And I also wish that Mr. Kushner will play a role in all this.
Okay, I mean, in terms of where we are now, what needs to be resolved. So there are, we understand, 4 bodies of Israeli hostages who remain somewhere in Gaza, probably under the rubble and very difficult to access. That's clearly one hurdle. Tell us what you think the other hurdles are, and do you think Hamas is acting in good faith?
Well, my main concern is the obstacles placed by Israel on the way. They are the one who are trying to obstruct this project. And let's not forget that just 2 weeks ago, Israel reacted to the sniping of one Israeli soldier by killing 120 Palestinians. So if the Israeli government were acting in good faith, they would have dealt with this as an incident, because nobody knows who shot him. And so they don't have to exaggerate every time. And now we see all this pressure on Israel to respect the ceasefire. When it comes to Hamas, I mean, there are a lot of mediators who are talking to Hamas, trying to create some responsibility in the way it's handling with the things. But the situation in Gaza is really critical. We need to move to step 2 of this process. So we have seen that Hamas has handed over the remains of probably 24 Israeli hostages. What we are talking about now are four bodies of 4 Israeli individuals. Other obstacles are, for example, 10,000 Palestinians are missing, but we are talking about 4 Israeli hostages. So does this shed some light on how severe the imbalance in our way of looking at things is? So we are talking about thousands of Palestinians missing. Israel is handing over remains of Palestinian individuals without clarifying the identity of these individuals. Nobody knows who they are, let alone of the condition of these remains. some parts of their bodies are missing. Let me not talk further about this.
Sure. I mean, you're making it sound like you don't really think Israel wants this to happen and that they're trying to find as many obstructions, excuses, whatever we want to call it, to ensure we don't get to the second phase of the Gaza ceasefire deal. Is that what you're saying?
I'm afraid Israel, if Israel were left to decide on its own what happens next in Gaza, I'm quite sure they would restart the assault on Gaza as soon as possible. And this explains how important the international pressure on Israel has to be in order for the ceasefire to be a lasting one, a ceasefire that leads to a political horizon, including the reconstruction of Gaza. We all know that peacemaking is not high on the agenda of Mr. Netanyahu, but let's all believe in a better future, and let's all believe in a key role by the United States to maintain this pressure on the Israeli government to carry on with this Trump plan that hopefully will lead to something this time around.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about is these reports of 200 fighters who are reportedly trapped in tunnels under the city of Rafah. I just wondered what your understanding was of that situation.
We all hear that they are trapped in the tunnels, and mediators are seeking Israeli agreement on their release and opening the way for them to be set free. Negotiations are taking place between the mediators and Israel, probably involving Hamas in some way. But these are groups of people who were left out by Hamas when the ceasefire deal was signed. Why didn't they talk about them in the first place? Why did they leave them in that area? Why didn't they find a solution for them? Well, this is one of many questions that were asked about Hamas's attitude to the ceasefire. Why didn't Hamas insist on easing the situation in the West Bank with all these settler attacks and all the confiscation of land and all the harsh Israeli measures and the collective punishment in the West Bank? This was left out. Well, they call it the typhoon of Al-Aqsa Mosque. They call this October 7th the typhoon of Al-Aqsa Mosque, but Al-Aqsa Mosque was left out from the whole process. So we wish for these people trapped in the tunnels to be released as soon as possible, and let Israel act in good faith. After all, Israel was protesting that people were kidnapped, and now Israel is taking hostages. These people in the tunnels shouldn't be taken hostage by Israel.
Well, some might say they're fighters of a group that's deemed as hostile not just to Israel, but to the broader peace effort. What would you say to that?
They should be released. They should go to their families. Some solution has to be found within the framework of disarmament that Hamas has signed on. It's not ourselves who signed that. Hamas signed this Trump plan, and it calls for the disarmament of Hamas. And if these people can be released upon the condition that they may be disarmed, so let it be. Okay. The important thing is that they survive and they go out of the tunnel. What human sense can allow Israel to make people die in a tunnel if they are fighters or non-fighters? They are, after all, they're human beings. They have to go out.
And Dr. Nazzal, I mean, presumably this is going to be discussed between Jared Kushner and Prime Minister Netanyahu. So what would your message be to Jared Kushner today?
We need a political horizon. This is a 100-year conflict that cannot be ended only by a ceasefire. For peace to take place, we need a just and lasting solution. And this can only be a viable, independent Palestinian state. I think they know that.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us. Dr. Jamal Nazzal, spokesperson for Fatah and a member of the Palestinian National Council. Thank you for your time, sir.